Korean market really okay in the perspective of global VC ecosystem. So the session will begin soon. We will have 3 guests for this session, and I'll be introducing the guests right now and then inviting them to the stage. We will have the managing partner of 541 Ventures, Eunse, and the managing partner of GFT Ventures, Jae-eum, and HoChan, managing partner of ACVC Partners. Please welcome them to the stage with a big applaud. Mr. Eunse, you can start whenever you can.
Well, thank you for great introduction. Really appreciate it, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Eunse, and I'm the founder and managing partner at 540 Ventures. 540 Ventures is in LA, and we globally partner with frontier tech startups with at least one Asian founder. That's what we do. So a lot of you guys, I'm really looking forward to meeting you guys afterwards. And we are here today with 2 fabulous investors. I'm really excited. Would you please introduce yourself? Because you guys just do this in your dreams, right? So let's do it. Jay, please.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Jae-eum. I'm the founding managing partner of GFT Ventures. GFT Ventures is a brand new venture capital firm based in Silicon Valley. GFT stands for Global Frontier Technology Ventures. Our firm focuses on early stage frontier tech investments primarily in the US, in areas such as AI, blockchain, robotics, and digital health. My partner and I, we have a strong background in investments over the last 20 years. We also used to work for some big technology companies. In my case, I used to run Samsung's venture operations, and my partner Jeff used to lead NVIDIA's investments and M&A activity over the last 20 years. Really excited to be here and looking forward to an interesting conversation.
Thank you. HoChan, please.
Sure. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this wonderful event. Hi, my name is HoChan Lee. I'm a managing director with ACVC Partners. So ACVC is a deep tech venture fund based in Silicon Valley. And we are focusing on 4 areas: mobility, sustainability, industry transformation, and life tech within the deep tech area. So they're pretty much, they're not mutually exclusive, they're kind of intertwined, but we try to kind of frame deep tech from this point of view. And prior to founding ACVC back in 2020, I was a managing partner with KTB Ventures and for about 15 years. So my investment experience is almost entirely based in the United States. But thanks to my previous job, KTB, I have a little bit of understanding of the Korean venture and startup ecosystem. So I hope that I can share some of my thoughts and experience with the audience today. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. So after this, before the session in the backstage, we talked about a lot actually about the title itself. The title is actually in English though. It's Korean ecosystem is being neglected in the global ecosystem, and we think it's a little bit provoking in a way. And I know you two have a lot of stuff you want to share with the audience today. So I just want to put the conclusion here first, because we just might miss it, right? So my first question is, do you agree that Korean ecosystem or Korean startups are being neglected in the global ecosystem or by the investors in the global ecosystem? Do you agree with that? So I'd like to start with HoChan. Could you share your thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Has Korea startup kind of being neglected by the global investors? Well, no, I don't think so. I think Korea startup companies are doing pretty well. And if you kind of think of the number of unicorn companies as a kind of good proxy measure for how successful the startup ecosystem is, I think Korea is already highly rated, ranked, in globally top 5 or top 6. So within that perspective, I think Korea has been doing perfectly well, and yeah, so that's my thought. And it's not about kind of, let me put it this way. So I know some of the Korean VCs kind of enter into the Southeast Asian market and India market, and they enter into that market because there are opportunities. And if someone finds kind of good success cases and show that there is no issue bringing money back to home country safely, and if there is no kind of tax issue, then it will kind of attract more investors into such markets. I think Korea has passed a stage, and Korea already proved that global investors can make a lot of return in the Korean market, like from Kakao early days, Coupang, and Ua Brothers, Toast, and others. So to me, it's like Korea is already kind of in that stage, and like back to your question, has our Korean startups that got kind of neglected by the global investor? No, I don't. Yeah, I think they have been doing well, and I think they will continue to doing well.
Great, thank you. Jay?
Yeah, I think there's a common misconception that a lot of Korean entrepreneurs have shared with me over the years is because, oh, we're a startup from Korea, Korea is a small market, and thus, global investors will not take us seriously. That is certainly not the case. I've had a chance to actually be part of a global growth stage investment organization in the last year or so called DTCP. And the way that DTCP and other growth stage investors, they are searching for deals globally that fit a certain metric that they're looking for. The primary three metrics that they're looking for is high growth, they're looking for high profitability, and then also high efficiency. And as long as any startup, it could be in Sweden, it could be in Indonesia, it could be in South Korea, as long as they meet those metrics, then these growth stage investors are very eager to invest. In fact, as we all know, there's 15 or so Korean unicorns so far. Every single one of those unicorns became a unicorn in Korea because global investors found them and invested in those companies. Right? So Korea being neglected actually doesn't make any sense. It's a good topic for us to talk about and trigger the thought of how can we make more high growth companies so that we can get more attention, more investment, and more unicorns out of that. That should be the topic. It's not like categorically global investors are neglecting because we're in Korea. That's certainly not the case.
Thank you. So it's very interesting remarks from you guys. And one thing that really strikes me is, one, you mentioned opportunity. And you mentioned about, Jay, you mentioned about certain characteristics that these global investors are looking for. And probably we are not sort of feeding them with the quality information that they're looking for. So, but at the same time, what occurred to me is we always say that in our industry, there's no vacuum, right? When there's an opportunity, then the money will come. That's what we always talked about, and that's certainly true. That's certainly the case in our industry, right? So, from that perspective, I'd like to sort of hear your thoughts at the ecosystem level. Like, we have great companies and we have great founders, but then again, how can you sort of let them know more of these quality companies? And there's an opportunity in Korea. Like, Jay, I'd like to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that most of the global growth stage investors, they have a very good network across the entire globe. And that's why you hear fundings from companies in Africa, fundings of companies in Australia, all over the world. And you'll be surprised because they consider that network and that information flow their advantage. So quite frankly, even if we don't make an effort to try to get in front of them and spread the word, believe it or not, they already have a lot of eyes and ears in the Korean ecosystem already. And the best way to get their attention, quite frankly, is not waving the flag that I'm doing really well, is actually to dominate Korea. So every single one, except for maybe a couple of cases in the cosmetics industry and gaming industry, where a lot of their products are being sold globally by global users and customers, every single one of the unicorn companies in Korea have dominated their domestic market. right? Whether it's in e-commerce, whether it's in fintech, you name it. And if you do so well in Korea, where you become a household name that everybody in Korea, which is not a small market at all, is using and generating dramatic revenue, that word gets out very quickly. That's why Sequoia Capital, DST, DTCP, all these global investors come to Korea, and they even have either their own partners here, or they have affiliations with local investors like Altos Ventures and others to get access to those companies, right? So I don't know if you have to worry about getting the word out that you're doing well. If you actually focus on your business and dominate Korea, then they will all come.
That's great, because we all have to have our successes first, and then leveraging them and sort of parlay upon them to get to the next level, right? So I think what you're saying, what you're sharing with our audience is first, get your little small success, and then parlay upon that. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think, again, just worrying about becoming a unicorn, worrying about getting global investments shouldn't be the priority of an entrepreneur. They should focus on their business. And if the business grows and they end up becoming a dominant player in Korea, then everybody will pay attention.
Great, thank you. And HoChan, you mentioned opportunity, right? And I like to double click on that. So we have, Korea is a great market. It's not a small market actually, and a lot of global investors also know that, right? But even in that, I think there are certain sort of opportunities that we can let them know more of, because we have our advantages. So if we sort of think about what are the opportunities that we have as our advantages for Korean companies, what do you think they are?
Well, in terms of opportunity, I think Jay mentioned that already very well. So to think about my cases, if even though our kind of geographic mandate or focus is in the U.S., we sometimes meet the companies from European startups or Israeli startups, even Taiwanese startups, and if we meet them, we first also think about how business itself, how the company is doing in their local market, but also as an investor and with a as a fund manager, we also think about the regulatory matters in that region. So is there any kind of things that we should be aware of, or in terms of tax matter, is there will be any kind of issue that we can bring to our LPs if we invest in certain regions? So that's something that we have been thinking about. And with that being said, I want to mention about one thing that we briefly talked behind the scene, and that is something I think Korea is missing, is kind of alignment interest across the startup ecosystem. So what I mean by alignment interest is, if you dissect the startup ecosystem, it can start from money in, which is kind of investors and VCs, and money mixed with labor, which is startup, and money out, which is exit markets like IPOs and M&As. So to make this system kind of cohesive and seamless, there should be one principle, which is a alignment of interest. So in the U.S., that the way to implement alignment interest into the system has been developed for a long period of time. But in Korea, I see there are some parts that are kind of missing. So, for example, in money in, there's I see there's a misalignment between GPs and LPs, because LPs are mostly government or quasi-government oriented organization driven by policies and regulation. And in the money mixed with labor, there are misalignment between investor and company, as well as among the investor, because we lack kind of class structure. And in money out, there are misalignments among the shareholders. Maybe to be specific, like IPO in Korea, they have all the different lockup rules. So those are something that that Korea can improve to kind kind of ease the concern of global investors, and so that they can focus entirely on the business itself. So yeah, so in terms of opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities, I think. That's already proven with a lot of unicorns. And Jay mentioned we have like 15, and I just saw an article that Korea has like 23 and 24 unicorns. And that's a kind of amazing number, because if you look at like France or Germany, they have about the same number of unicorns. And in fact, like Germany and France, they invested like 12, 15 billion a year, and Korea invests way less than that. So it's very capital efficiently kind of creating kind of unicorns in Korea. So I think in terms of kind of market itself, it's pretty attractive, and I think it's already known to the global investor community.
Great. So I think we agree that actually global investors, I don't know what that means exactly, but these investors outside Korea, they have a lot of ears and eyes in Korean ecosystems, and they're like always looking for opportunities here, and we have a lot of opportunities. I think that's what we are aligned with here with this subject. So we talked about it, this Korean ecosystem at a sort of macro level. Now I'd like to sort of zoom into this individual company level. And you've seen so many companies, and if there's any difference between, say, Korean company and the U.S. companies, and which also sort of make Korean startups less appealing to the eyes of like global investors or U.S. investors, do you find such things in Korean companies? HoChan, can you share your perspective first?
Sure. Well, again, I'm keep saying the good things about the Korean startup ecosystem, so it's hard to kind of reverse my position. So I'm going to keep saying that good words. And well, like our Korean startups are investable from the eyes of the global investor. Well, I think so, and I think, and also investable companies, I think that's more kind of company specific than kind of country or market specific. So, but the thing is that, like, so as we are all in the VC and industry, so from VC point of view, there are, when we make an investment decision, so these are the kind of factors. First is, size of opportunity, is market is big enough. And second is products or services kind of competitive enough to capture that opportunity. And third is team capable enough to kind of execute the plan as they promise. So but the problem for early stage startup is, you only know the team, to be more specific, founders, but you don't know if the market is real, and you don't know if the product or service is working. But so with that, like there is a little chance, if not no chance, that non-local investor will be able to make investment into like Korean startups, as they don't know the market, they don't know the product, they don't know who you are. And at least the local investor know who you are. So I think there is a chance. But for the later stage, the things get different. Like, they don't know, they know the market, and they know that, product or service is working okay or properly or performing well. And they still don't know who you are. But at least they know that you have been doing your job pretty well. So that's the moment that foreign investor can jump into the market. And that's, if you look at what's happening in Korea, as Jay mentioned, a lot of unicorn companies got funded by non-Korean investors, but they came at a later stage. So that's the kind of so I think it's a matter of stage and timing rather than companies investable or not.
Gotcha. Thank you. Saying good thing is great, right? But saying good job and patting on your shoulder doesn't really improve you, right? So from that perspective, Jay, could you say a couple of things about the things that you want to see Korean startups improve to increase their investability in the global ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're labeling this as a generic term of Korean startups, but Korean startups have so much variety in terms of quality and focus and different areas. For me, the best way to think about this, if you assume getting funding from a global investor is almost like playing in the major leagues or the English Premier League in soccer. then those scouts, those investors are looking for talent all over the world, right? And they have a certain standard that they have in their minds that it doesn't matter if you're from Korea or Thailand or Australia, as long as you meet that standard, then you have a chance to play in the Premier League. And that's how you see so many international players playing in that top league. I don't think it's a matter of what Korea overall can do. It's really based upon individual entrepreneurs and companies. If they can meet those standards of growth, of profitability, of efficiency, then those investors are happy to consider investing in them. Not everybody's going to invest, but at least you pass the bar there. So it's kind of like getting a test to try out. And once they go into due diligence and test you out, if you actually can meet their standards, then you get to play in the Premier League like Son Heung-min, right? And if you play well enough, then you can become an all-star there and become the scoring champion and all of that stuff. So I think the question should be less about Korea. It's all about specific individuals and companies and thinking about what is the standard you can do to optimize your business to meet those. And again, not having to worry about global investors, because domestic investors will find you out first. They will fund you. And if you take their capital and continue to grow, then eventually global investors will find out about you as well. So I just don't think it's the right question to ask about, is there anything generic can be done? I mean, quite frankly, I think one of the things Korea has already done really well, we already have success cases. Like, I've been talking about this, and people that know me for 20 years, we need a Park Se-ri moment, right? And if you all remember, Park Se-ri out of nowhere won 2 LPGA US Open titles back to back. Nobody was expecting this. Nobody in Korea, nobody in the US. But as soon as she did this and proved that Korean women golfers can compete at a global level, that opened the floodgates. And now you have more than any other single nationality that's not US, more LPGA pros. And so that should be what we should be focused on, creating that success case. And the good news is, in Korea's case, we already have success cases. So I wouldn't worry too much about getting attention or doing this or doing that. People are already paying attention to the Korean ecosystem because they've seen success, they've seen global investors make a lot of money out of there. Anytime you read the press release from SoftBank, which was the main investor in Coupang, despite all of their losses in WeWork and other fiascos, the 1 or 2 companies that have made the most money for SoftBank in the last few years is Coupang, and that's in Korea.
Thank you. I kind of think that you almost really nicely segued from saying F-word to fiasco, so good job on that. Given how we think most of the audiences here actually are at this early stage, before they build any meaningful tractions, maybe they're at the ideation stages and now just building their MVPs. So for these like really baby companies and baby stage founders, what would you like to sort of tell them in terms of increasing their of course I really don't want to say investability here, but then that's because part of our topics here, like what do you think they can do increase of their investability in the global ecosystem? And also I like to ask you this. So a lot of companies are actually concerned the fact that they're a Korean company, and I don't really think that's the case in the global like US investors, like they don't really care if you're from like Korea, US, Singapore, or whatnot, as long as they can invest globally, right? So what do you think about this labeling too? Jay, would you like to go first?
I mean, I think it's a fair question to ask, and one of the things that I do think, even though in general I don't think Korean companies are disadvantaged versus startups in other countries, there is one thing that most, I would say, non-US companies have a disadvantage over. Companies in the US and maybe even in China, because their domestic markets are so big, if you succeed in those markets, you become a global standard, right? So you don't really have to worry about local optimization versus global optimization, because if you optimize to succeed in the US, effectively you are optimizing for global success. At least that's been traditionally the case in most technology startups. The disadvantage that Korean startups or any non-US startup will have is that if you optimize to succeed in Korea, where you're doing local optimization, in many cases that local optimization is not the same as global optimization, and there will be a difference in terms of your product features, service features, and whatnot, that it will take an extra effort when you are trying to take your product or service globally that you will need to tweak. So think about this. Think about US startup technology companies that become global giants. Google didn't have to change much, although they did try to optimize in Korea to match what Naver was offering. Facebook didn't have to optimize as much, other than the Korean regulatory framework, which they have to optimize for everybody else. But if it's the other way around, it's a lot more difficult, right? So that is a disadvantage. So to me, the key question is you need to decide on a path. And there's two ways to become a major league all-star, and I talk about this a lot as well. You can dominate the Korean professional baseball league, become a perennial all-star, get recruited by the LA Dodgers, and become a major league all-star like Hyunjin Ryu did, okay? Or you can go to the US early, start from single A, minor leagues, build your way up, double A, triple A, join a team and become a professional like Shin-Soo Choo did. You can either way become a major league all-star, right? The question is, which path can you take? Which is the better path for you? In many cases, if you've already started a company in Korea, it is very difficult to take the other route because you've started a company in Korea. So you need to dominate Korea, become a perennial all-star to have a chance in the major leagues. But if you're thinking about starting the company and you have the opportunity and the ability to actually move to the US, maybe study there, join a company, work as a product manager at Google or Facebook, and then start a company, then you can become a Shin-Soo Choo all-star as well. It's very difficult to start here and go there.
So I think you're saying, if you want to go global, at least think about it from day zero. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, you need to kind of decide before you start your company which path you want to take. And either way, you can become an all-star.
Great. HoChan, would you like to share anything?
Sure. Recently, Elon Musk, acquired Twitter, and many people's, kind of divided pro Elon or against Elon. Anyway, so there's some kind of interesting comment about Elon Musk takeover Twitter. So Elon Musk has been very successful in like Tesla, SpaceX, and solar. So they are all kind of deep tech area. So they have a answer for their questions. So and like electric cars and others, there's some metrics. So if you can perform better, you can drive like 400 miles. So it's, you will get a lot of attention. So, but what about Twitter? So like social internet kind of consumer business. So there's no kind of right or wrong answer. So what I want to say here is actually I'm in deep tech investment area. So it's kind of for me, to me it's a little straightforward. So for all stage company, they kind of build a product and they kind of develop science and they can show exactly how they can improve against other state-of-art kind of technology around the globe. So for deep tech, I think whether you start as Jay mentioned, whether you start here or not, it's kind of that's become a little bit kind of irrelevant. And once you have built interesting kind of technology that can surpass whatever kind of state-of-art kind of performance, then you can make a really interesting company. So yeah, so that's my take on that.
Great. Thank you. And now I'd like to open up to our audience here. And probably we can take 2-3 questions with the time that's remaining. So would you like to, if you have any question, this is your opportunity. So please raise your hand and ask your question. And I think we can get questions in Korean, right? Like, I'm not asking who, I'm not sure. But probably we can, Mike, please. we are getting questions from the audience. So could you? We can't hear you. It's kind of far. So. Okay, there's one coming. And when you ask questions, please let us know who you're asking the question to. So, for example, Jay or HoChan or both.
세 분 모두에게 드리고 싶은 질문입니다. 근데 왜냐하면 다 이제 해외에서 해외 투자자의 관점에서 대답을 해주실 수 있을 것 같아서요. 그 거시경제 관련한 질문입니다. 요즘 그 투자 환경이 너무 안 좋아지고 있고, 뭐 여기 이 오늘 행사에서 이것과 관련된 얘기도 많이 나오고 있는데, 특별히 해외 투자를 원하는 국내 스타트업 혹은 해외 진출하고 싶어하는 그 스타트업들이 요즘 투자 환경이 안 좋아지는 환경에서 더 고려해야 될 점이 있는지, 해외 투자자들한테 이런 부분은 중요하다, 이런 거시 환경 속에서 이 부분은 중요하다고 조언을 해주실 부분은 있는지 궁금합니다.
Thank you. That's a great question. So we had a question about the tech winter, right? HoChan, I'd like to start with you. Would you like to? What advice would you like to share with the audience today?
Well, certainly tech sector and bio sector are the two biggest losers in market cap in the U.S. public markets. So, and that's something unavoidable, under this high inflation and high interest rate situation, as their value mostly relied on the terminal value, so to speak. Their value can swing widely from a small change of discount rate, which is interest rate. So, certainly that public market sentiment trickle down to private market valuation, and so the problem is, as the capital cost is kind of shoot up, and there is not much kind of cheap money in the market, so it's really hard to kind of raise and hard to play that traditional that consumer game, like you raise massive amount of money and kind of you scale at the expense of high burn. So that kind of playbook has more or less kind of ended. So I think it's time to kind of back to basics, just build a core kind of asset and also keep the burn low, and also like manage cash flow and take money even if the terms are not that ideal. So that's kind of it's not only for the Korean startup but also true for my portfolio companies as well. So yeah, so that would be my advice.
Great, thank you. Jay, would you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting you asked that question. Right now, it's a very difficult macro environment, and it's most likely going to get worse before it gets better. When you think about expansion in general, whether it's overseas or expanding into a different market, to a different product category, you typically want to do that from a position of strength, meaning that your core business is doing really well and you have the extra resources to expand to another overseas market, to a different customer segment, build a different product. If your company is in that situation today, that's great. I want to invest in that company. Most companies are not in that situation. In fact, in many cases, the core business of the company in the geography, with the customer segment, with the current product and service, is under attack because the cost of doing business is getting higher and higher and becoming more difficult. Right now, any entrepreneur should be focusing on making sure your core business is secure. This is not the right time to think about any sort of expansion. And by the way, if your core business is not doing really well and your existing investors domestically in Korea are not willing to fund you, or no other Korean VCs are willing to fund you, please don't come to the US thinking that in the US they will fund you either, because that's not going to happen. So right now, it's not the right time to think about expansion. This is a time to batch things down and make sure your core business can survive. This is about survival. And whoever survives, by the way, and survives this nuclear winter, will be the winner. That's how it happened. Like, people talk about PayPal. There were almost 100 payment startups when PayPal was doing well. They were very fortunate. They raised a $100 million round few months before the dot-com bubble burst. And while every single one of their competitors died because they ran out of cash, they were able to survive because of good timing, and they focused on building their core business. So this is actually a great time. If you survive this winter, you can become a winner.
I don't disagree with you, with other our panels here, but I just like to add one quick thing about what actually caused this like tech winner, right? So let's say you are an endowment fund of whatever university, right? You have money to manage, and you put that money into different asset classes. So like fixed income, like stocks, real estates, whatnot, right? And venture is a very small portion of that. And because this public market collapsed, well, actually what they have is the denominator problem. The value of other assets gets down, so all of a sudden the amount of venture looks very large. So they want to scale back, or they have to scale back. That's what's happening. And also increasing this interest rate. We have this word called cost of capital. It means the cost of money that you have to pay to raise whatever amount of money or borrow money or whatnot. And the cost of capital is higher. So actually that makes the bar of most of this venture investors it's pushing it upward. So before, maybe we could think okay, this could be a billion dollar company. That's great, let's do it. But now maybe we're looking for we want to find $3 billion company because the bar is higher, right? And in that sense, I think this could be a great opportunity if you're swinging for the fences, not just good size of company, but really swing for the fences. I think this is a great opportunity, and for us to be honest, because the valuation gets down a little bit, and that means we actually are sitting on a really nice cushion of additional return at the exit. So I think we need this two conflicting ideas. This is a really tough time. You have to sort of manage your cash flow, but then again, this actually could be an opportunity for great companies. So these two are really conflicting idea, and hopefully I didn't take too much time. So did we answer the question? Okay. We can have one more question. Who's fast? Okay, please come to us afterwards. All right.
네, 좋은 말씀 주셔서 감사합니다. 저는 제이께 질문을 드리고 싶습니다. 굉장히 운이 좋게 그 글로벌 인베스터인 트랜스링크로부터 이렇게 저희 회사를 프로모트할 수 있는 기회가 생겼습니다. 저희 회사를 프로모트한 입장에서 어떤 점을 저희 장점을 어필하면은 글로벌 인베스터로부터 저희가 좋은 회사다, 굉장히 인베스터블한 회사다라고 평가받을 수 있을까요?
예, 굉장히 Should we continue in English or Korean? 일반적인 투자가들이 보는 관점들이 크게 다르진 않거든요. 그러니까 아까 말씀드린 대로 결국은 일단 창업자의 어떤 백그라운드과 자질을 많이 보고, 특히 어떤 시장에 어떤 식으로 접근을 해서 그걸 해결하는 솔루션, 프로덕트든 서비스든 제공을 하고, 실제로 많은 투자가들이 아주 초기 단계에 파운더만 보고 투자하는 게 아니라 그러면 기본적으로 어느 정도의 고객과 시장 반응을 보고 싶어 하는 게 일반적이에요. 그래서 잘 보일 수 있는 방법이 딴 게 있는 게 아니라 실적을 내는 거고요. 초기에 프로덕트를 트랙션을 보이는 것만큼 투자가들한테 관심을 끌 수 있는 방법은 없습니다.
So I actually just said there is no vacuum in our industry. I think you're just repeating on that. Am I right?
Yeah, no, I think it's common sense. Most investors can tell which company is a good one and which company isn't a good one, and that's why you see so much competition for a small number of investable companies. Before we run out of time, one thing I do want to mention, because I've talked about how this is a difficult time and you need to focus on survival. If any of you in the audience are thinking about starting a new company, this is the best time to do it. Right? So think about this. It's a difficult funding environment, but when you're starting, you don't need a lot of funding. You just need the desire to start something and the opportunity. And ultimately, businesses are consisted of capital and people, right? And with everything that's going on in the market, with all the layoffs and whatnot, this is the best time to hire good people and start companies together. In the US right now, because of all the hiring freezes, all the big companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, all of these companies are now either hiring new hires or laying off massive amounts of people. These people are highly qualified people that are now available to join your startup. So if you think about ultimately the team gives you the opportunity to go after and raise capital, then this is actually a great time to start a company. Many of the most successful companies in history were started after an economic downturn.
Because there are a lot of availabilities in terms of talent, like great talent.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I was going to ask you one last words of wisdom, and because of the time limit, I just want to pass on to HoChan for the one last words of wisdom for our audience today.
Well, for if you're a founder, just continue building exciting product, and this is really the good time, as Jay mentioned. Maybe it's not good, maybe best time to start. And if you're a VC, it's the best time to invest. So continue to make investment. And if you're a foreign investor, this is the best time to invest in this best country. So, yeah, I wish best luck.
Thank you. So, I just want to tell you one thing. Well, actually, we like to talk to people, and I think we will all stick around after the session. So if you have any question you wanted to ask but didn't get a chance, please come to us after the session, and we'd be happy to talk to you guys. And hopefully what we talked about is helpful to you guys, and thanks a lot for listening. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.